Okay, so my name is Laura Broxson and I run the National Animal Rights Association, and I'm here with a good friend of mine, Carah Daniel, who is a socialist and a vegan, and is one of the most committed activists I know. So thanks, Carah, for joining me for a chat today.
No problem.
So what I want to ask you first, Carah, was what made you get involved with socialism? What made you get involved with animal rights and veganism, and which came first?
Um, well, I suppose I was sort of raised a socialist, but then once I myself really understood what socialism was sort of after the death of Savita in 2012. That was the first thing I was politically involved in. And then in 2014, the circus came to Balbriggan, near where I live, and there was 5 Bengal tigers in like a 40-foot truck, and I didn't really know much about like animal rights or anything, but I think most people know that that's bad. So since then, we've had protests every year outside the circus in Balbriggan, and I think that's kind of like, since then I've met other animal rights activists and become involved then. And then actually it was a few years later that I became vegan. At the start, I thought like I was a vegetarian and I was doing these protests. I kind of thought that was enough, but then it was being involved with other vegans and other animal rights activists talking about like how we should be vegan, but also explaining it and helping me become vegan did help a lot. So it didn't come all at once, but it did all come together eventually.
Well, that's great, and I think that's like what happens with most people. You get involved with one aspect of activism or social justice campaigns, and then the rest kind of like naturally follow. And I myself, I was vegetarian first before going vegan, and I was primarily an animal rights activist first before getting involved in other social justice campaigns. So one usually does kind of come before the other. But because you're so active in socialism campaigns, and I recently started to get more involved with that kind of thing as well over the last couple of years, I've noticed that a lot of socialists are not overly interested in animal issues, and you're one of the few vegans I would know. And then in that same regard, animal rights activists and vegans don't seem to want to get into other social justice campaigns and political activism. I've been thinking over the last couple of weeks, like how can we properly merge the two? Because the two, to me, should be sort of the most progressive people in the country, and to me, naturally, both should come together, and it just doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, I think that is the truth of the matter. But I think we have also seen a bit of progress in this direction, in that like we've had the bills to ban circuses and fur farming, and now we've got the bill to ban hair coursing. I don't mean the bill specifically, but more the campaigns around them. I'm not saying they've been like mass campaigns, but they have been broader than the usual, animal rights activists and a few others. I think it has taken off a bit more, and I think socialists have played a role in it. I think it needs to go further, but I think it has been positive. And I mean, on all of those issues there, and also obviously the meat industry as well, like it's the drive for profit is the main reason for animal abuse. And it really shows kind of the cruel nature of capitalism, like quite sharply. So I think socialists do need to take up those issues, and also and work with the animal rights community. And then on the flip side, like you were saying, that like animal rights activists and vegans are extremely political, really, by like what we are campaigning in. And I think when you're involved again in any struggle, you do start to notice the injustices other places as well. So I think, I think like many vegans I know, again, wouldn't be maybe socialists, but they are drawing socialist conclusions or left-wing conclusions. Because I think when you're campaigning, it's clear that the capitalist system, like the government, the establishment, are not on our side, and that we do need to, certainly something needs to change. Maybe it's not as, I think there is a natural link between socialism and animal rights. It's just not everyone seems to see it. But I think when you do explain it, it is quite clear that they should be together and both should be working together. But I do think we do need to make sure that to push socialist ideas in the animal rights movements, but then also within socialist campaigns to be raising animal rights issues that might not be the traditional campaigns, if you like, of socialists, but it is becoming more and more of an issue now. So I think it is, hopefully things will become more, like, socialists become more involved in these things as well.
Yeah, I hope so. And like I think that like the last couple of campaigns, whether it's about, the wild animals and circuses bill and fur farming and now potential to ban hair coursing, I think it's all like a really good start, and it is kind of linking the two together very well. But I think it's comes sometimes to me from a kind of more of a welfare perspective rather than a rights perspective. And I think one of the big things at the moment is the issue of the slaughterhouses in COVID-19 terms. I find that the vegans talking about it are talking about it in a shut down the slaughterhouses because they're killing animals, and then socialists talking about it in terms of, let's shut down the slaughterhouses, just primarily for workers and farmers and give the power back to farmers. So I think this is the current topic that we have a bit of an opportunity to try and merge both veganism and worker solidarity. But I don't think either side is really interested in doing that at the moment. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they've been, obviously slaughterhouses have been in the news a lot recently with the COVID-19, and it's been absolutely tragic. Like, I think any vegan, the ordinary workers that are in really bad working conditions, which they've been in since before this, it's just now that it's becoming a big issue, that we'd absolutely stand in solidarity with those workers. But it's obviously, then, we are vegans, we do want to shut down slaughterhouses. So I think we do need to have like a class conscious kind of worker friendly approach to this without like diluting what we are saying. But I think like slaughterhouses, but even like, greyhound stadiums, things like that, where there would be workers in the shop there, that they're not who we are trying to shut down, really. But and we don't want to leave ordinary workers in poverty, but we do want to close down slaughterhouses. And how would you do that? And like, as a socialist, we'd say that with the demand to shut them down, we also do want to convert jobs like in slaughterhouses to better industries, like green industries that with real living wage, safe working conditions and trade union rights. That but you're not going to get that in a capitalist society, really. Even if we were to shut down slaughterhouses, they're not going to really care about the workers. They'll just find something else profitable for them to do. So I think you do need socialist change in order to ensure that those demands are met, and then link it with kind of like public ownership, because as long as those industries of animal abuse are in the hands of private companies, it's not up to us what happens. I think that class conscious veganism, while still keeping the veganism to the fore, is what will kind of merge that more traditional struggles of socialists with animal rights, because the politics of socialism is still in it, but it is still putting forward like the animal rights, the vegan position. And I think that's the best way to do it. And it's also the correct way to do it. I think, that it ensures workers' rights are respected as much as possible, and that slaughterhouses are shut down as well. So I think that would be my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with you 100% there. And I think sometimes like people forget that people who work in slaughterhouses, the majority of them are not doing so because they love killing animals or think that this is their ideal number one job. And even recently I read an article where they were interviewing some slaughterhouse workers, and one of them even said that it's terrible and he hates it and it's cruel and whatever. So I think that's also kind of important to remember in these things, that not everyone is doing it because they enjoy it or even want to,
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that, absolutely everything you're saying is totally the way we should go about it. And in terms of, trying to transition the country from animal agriculture to plant-based agriculture, have you any kind of ideas how maybe politically we could start this and join maybe an animal rights campaign to do it like together? I've been kind of discussing with a few people over the past couple of weeks the possibility of putting a presentation together specifically aimed at socialist groups as to how politically it makes sense, environmentally, for workers' rights, for animals, for everything, But to have to kind of like make a start plan, how would we do this in Ireland? I think we're in a unique opportunity. We're a small enough country that it could be possible. There's a lot of land that could be converted into crop farming. And do you have any idea of how we might have a template for socialism and animal rights to make this transition?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, like, I don't want to just say we need socialism, because that's just a very broad answer. I think we do need socialism, because obviously we want like a planned economy in which that you can, like, you can see what do people need, what do people want, how do we do this, and also things like we could invest so much more into like dairy, like meat and dairy alternatives that are like, free, not free, widely available, like, much more normalized and things like that, which you would need a change in society to do. And I think it would also have to be like, you could start it in, like, let's say Ireland or something, but I think something like that would also have to be an international trend to, like, just to really make it work, so that it's not then like we're in competition with some other country that's like producing all this meat and everyone's getting their meat from there. I think it would have to be an international thing. But I think, we don't want to just like turn around tomorrow and tell everyone they've got to be vegan. Well, I mean, we do, but we do want people to want to be vegan as well. And I think a lot of the outreach things, explaining to people that veganism isn't like, it is a scary word for a lot of people, because it sounds difficult, but it really isn't. And I think not just like, giving people recipes, but explaining to people firstly why they should be vegan, and which I know people do, but I think it does need to be on a much larger scale, because unfortunately the meat industry and the dairy industry have much more money than us to be able to put forward like campaigns against us, or like to say, you see some of them about like how the dairy farmers are all really nice and all, and they have enough money to put up these massive billboards. But I think you need a lot of things like that as well, and trying to like a transitional approach to it, that like, explaining to people and trying to reach them where they're at and explaining why, like, I think that's important. And then, I don't know, I'd have to think more now about a full plan, but I'd definitely be interested in discussing more, especially with other socialists as well, and and animal rights activists coming together to try and come up with a plan that would, for obviously, benefit animals, but also make sure that workers and the environment and everything is catered for. And for that, you would need like a planned economy, really.
Yeah, and I think, if we were able to kind of formulate a plan together that we could propose that made sense, both in terms of ethics and economy and stuff like that, I think, it could very quickly get, momentum and get kind of validity among political parties as being a viable option. And I note that like there's a new group in Cork called Nature Rising, and they are kind of putting together sort of templates and proposals on how this change could happen. I know that Eden Farm Sanctuary has already offered farmers to get in touch with them if they're thinking of converting to plant-based agriculture and stuff like that. So I know that there's small factions already trying to make this a workable thing, but if we could do it on a bigger scale, I think that would be great. And if we could get it, in the Dáil somehow, even proposed, I think it would be great as well, or even give a presentation in the Dáil somehow. It would be a good idea. Well, coming back to kind of socialism and tying the two in together, I noticed that like a lot of the times when I'm talking about veganism to socialists, that the argument is, well, we have to destroy capitalism first, then we'll think about going vegan. So I think sometimes a lot of socialists would be against individual change. And I would still, like, I consider myself a socialist, even though I'm not affiliated to any particular group or party. But I think individual change in terms of veganism is important, as well as tackling capitalism together. So what would you say to that? Would you be kind of for individual change, or you would be more kind of wait for the system to crash first? What would you say to that?
I think I'd agree with you there that both are important, because I mean, individual actions, even on like, recycling and all, like the environment, that's not going to stop climate change. But people should also be doing that, because it's just basic common decency, you know. And I think as well that, like, with veganism, I mean, like, for me, before I really thought about it on the grander scale, it was just that I did not want that in my body. Like, I didn't want to be contributing to that, even though it was only me, but I just didn't want to be taking part in that. But then I think that the more people that are vegan, the more it's normalized, the more things there are, the more people are talking about it, that you can achieve some change. I don't think you can achieve complete, like, societal change, but I think that alongside fighting for socialism is kind of the key. But I don't think we should be waiting until we're all in this socialist society, that we should be trying to get as many people as we possibly can to not eat animals and to not, like, exploit animals. I think that's just, even on a non-political level, that's just the right thing to do. So I would say, like, kind of both would be important. And then also we can use, like, the idea of veganism politically to be like, well, look at this is better for the environment, this is better for workers, this is better for animals. You know, it can be used as part of our agitation, if you like, for socialist change. I think we should be, like, as socialists, kind of fighting to be as much as part of the, like, society we want to be in the future, and represent that as much as we can.
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree with that. And then in terms of vegans and animal rights activists, I find that, like, whenever I'm trying to discuss, maybe like with other vegans or new vegans getting involved in, like, socialist campaigns or, you know, groups and things like that, I often encounter a huge reluctance to get involved because they think it's some political agenda that doesn't tie in with animal rights. There's also, I mean, when I first got involved in animal rights, everyone was joining the Green Party because they thought that was the most kind of progressive way to include animal issues in a political arena. So I find that there's still that ideal there, that if we were to go with any sort of political agenda, it would be a Green Party agenda. So what would you say to vegans who are showing a reluctance to get involved in socialist campaigns and thought and theory, and are advocating for more of a Green Party political stance? In my opinion, I think the Socialist Party are very green and have all these progressive ideas and things like that, like socialist groups and parties in general. But there's still that kind of unwillingness to look into it or listen. So what would you think? So basically, socialist groups versus Green Party, and why animal rights people should get involved.
Well, I think that, I mean, obviously, like, everyone in my organization or any socialist organization, they're not all vegans and they're not all perfect on these things. But I still do think that in a socialist society, which is what we're fighting for, it will be. I just don't see how it couldn't be vegan, because I don't see why you would be exploiting animals if we're supposed to be against exploitation, etc. Why we just wouldn't? I don't see how that would be a thing that would be okay. So, like, that is our end goal, is a society that not just for animal welfare, not even just for animal rights, but, like, animal liberation, that animals are their own beings that aren't to do with us to be exploited. Like, that is the end goal. But also, within the system now, socialists do want to fight, like, we fight on even, like, issues like animal rights and all, but it's not within, like, the frameworks of capitalism. Whereas the Green Party, they are a capitalist party, they're a green capitalist party, but they're not going to be able to achieve the change that people want to see, like, even, like, on the environment, etc., that, like, carbon taxes or things like that are not the way to save the environment, that we do need to break with the system and even put forward ideas that could possibly go outside the system, whereas the Green Party are very limited because they won't go outside of that. And also, like, I think the Green Party have exposed themselves a lot lately with, like, even with the government formation talks and stuff, that they are willing to go into government with Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, and they're not an environmentally friendly party. That a lot of the Green Party's talk does sound good, and even when, like, particularly in the local elections last year, when the Green Party did so well, it represented something really positive, that people were voting for the environment and for, like, the well-being, and that was really positive. But unfortunately, like, the Green Party they're not even in government, and they've exposed themselves already. And I think even for the people that did vote for the Greens, and like for really good reasons, again, I think they should look towards socialist ideas, because we also do want to save the environment, but we believe that you do need to change the capitalist system. You do need to fight for a new society, and obviously that's a bit of a tall task. But the more people that like are involved, the more change we can get, and the more like, you know, movements and struggles and like protests and things like that do work, you know. Whereas the Green Party aren't really a radical party, so to say, in my view. So I think it would be better for people to join socialist parties, but also that like the more vegans and animal rights activists that are in our organizations, the more we learn as well. Like people can learn from vegans and from animal rights activists, because there's a whole wealth of information there that people just don't know about, that would be happy to learn about. And I think that should be like the goal of vegans as well, is to like assist us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100% there. And I think, like, for me, like I had always kind of thought that if you're vegan, you must be like the top level of progressiveness and everything there is, and it just isn't the case. And I found that like when NARA publicly got involved in the campaign for repeal, that there was quite a big backlash from the vegan community. Not just in terms of, you know, disagreeing with the campaign, but that an animal rights group shouldn't get involved in human rights issues, and what are we doing that for? It doesn't make sense. Whereas to me and to you, it makes total sense. So for any kind of like new, like either campaigns or new animal rights groups starting up, you know, what would you think would be the best way to kind of get involved in local community activism? I mean, there's a lot of different socialist groups around Dublin anyway, and what would be a good starting point? I know that for me, I kind of join everything and every group, and if the campaign looks good, I'll help out and join it. But if you're new to activism and new to socialism and animal rights, you know, how important is it to you to start off from day one being involved in everything? Because there was a bit of an uproar. Well, we got involved in marriage equality campaign as well. There wasn't as much of a backlash over that, but repeal, vegans weren't happy. So what would you think?
Well, I think, again, like for a lot of people, like, I mean, obviously veganism isn't just a dietary choice, but for a lot of people it is. Like they think that there's a lot of people, like veganism doesn't necessarily mean you're politically good, like on marriage equality or repeal. So I think, you know, that's, but again, there is still an awful lot of vegans that are quite radical and are quite left-wing. So I think it is essential to combine the two. I think the campaign, the Vegans for Choice, was brilliant. Like it was really good, and it even showed solidarity with the abortion rights campaign, that also then led to like people in that campaign having more respect for the vegan campaign and then thinking about it more, which I think was important. We did that as well with the Jobstown Not Guilty, when we, like, the animal rights groups marched, and that, I think that was important to show solidarity. And I'd say there was lots of people there that probably wouldn't have thought really about animal rights activists, but would have obviously appreciated the support. And, you know, you do remember that then. Yeah. But I think you can be involved in a lot of different issues at the same time, because there's a lot of different things happening, and there's a lot of things that we do need to change. And obviously, like, regarding like organizations, there are so many organizations, you know, you don't really need to be in an organization. You can jump back and forth. I mean, the organization I'm in is the CWI, that we would try, and we're quite a small organization, so there's simply not enough people to be everywhere, but we would try to, again, intervene into as many issues as we can. Right now it's, you know, the Debenhams workers, the Black Lives Matter, and then we haven't done much on the hair coursing bill yet, but we are hoping to write an article on that to try and, you know, just as many things as we can. But we then try and just link it all back then to socialist ideas and how we do want to change things all around, that all of these issues do tie together, even though they might not all look like they do. But that would be my thoughts.
Well, do you want to give kind of a brief kind of description on CWI and the kind of work you do for anyone who might be interested in getting involved?
Yeah. So I'm a member of the Committee for Workers International, CWI, in Ireland. We're in the north and the south of Ireland. We're a socialist organisation, and we've got members in various different countries around the world. At the minute, we're campaigning a lot at the minute we're all stuck inside, but we do have some comrades that are able to go to the Debenham strikes and support them. We're trying to get as much support internationally for the Debenhams workers. We are organising things on the Black Lives Matter after obviously the tragic murder of George Floyd in the US. We're trying to organise some meetings, maybe even a protest within our 5 kilometres to see what's possible. And then really we've got like in the north, we've got do an awful lot of trade union work. We've got quite good positions in the north as well. And then we've got a councillor, Donal, in the north as well. So we are small, but we're trying to make as much of a difference as we can, and we're trying to build. And that's kind of the main thing. And then obviously we have like our meetings every week that we are trying to discuss socialist ideas, and a lot of it is about like political development ourselves and discussing various ideas and various topics. So that's us really.
Yeah, sounds great. And I've noticed that you have a Zoom chat or a Facebook Live for the 9th of June, is that correct?
I think it might be the 4th. I think it's this week.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on the CWI page then, because I think like I'm finding myself obviously like with not working at the moment and not being able to get out protesting and things, I'm attending any and every Zoom discussion or debate I can. So if anyone wants to check out what CWI and the kind of work Carah does, check out their page, and they've like Zoom meetings and chats and discussions, and they post a lot on their page as well. So it's a nice introduction. Anyone who then wants to get in more information about veganism can get in touch with NARA or get in touch with Carah as well, because we're both vegan, we're both, you know, social justice campaigners. So if anyone wants more information, either of us is fine. But Carah, is there anything else that you'd like to add, or any kind of other point that maybe we didn't touch on?
I don't think so. I think that was quite a broad discussion.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks so much, Carah, for taking the time to chat. And I hope we can chat a little bit more soon on these issues. And I hope that this helps encourage vegans to become socialists and socialists to become vegans.